This is In the Middle with Josh and Sarah Siders. We get it. You're probably going through something that's asking you to dig deep, think differently, and hold on against the odds.
So these are our thoughts about starting new things, shutting some things down, and being with you right there in the middle.
Hey, welcome back to In the Middle.
Good to see you. Good to have you all.
So today, our topic is growth mindset
Yes.
versus fixed mindset.
Yeah, that's good.
Which, I mean, these are not new, right?
No.
So I think what's funny is like in modern times, we like to take this like hustle culture, productivity meets psychology kind of like language, and we apply it to things, and we're like, hey, invented this new thing. It's called growth mindset. It's more just like, what does it really mean, right? Like, what are you really saying? So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, like the difference between growth mindset and fixed mindset. Like, explain it to me like I'm from the 1800s.
Yeah. So I think the phrase fixed versus growth mindset comes from a book by Carol Dweck called Mindset.
Okay.
And, leadership, self-help, business kind of area.
Mm-hmm.
Best I can do is just say, fixed mindset means you're set in your ways.
Yep.
You know best. You're not willing to have an open mind.
Okay.
And growth mindset means to be curious.
Curious. Okay. Okay. I mean, that feels low stakes.
Yeah, I think it does until you get into, situations where your reputation is on the line, or you're about to be proven wrong. You have this kind of sunk cost in a thing or a, worldview or whatever, and people are, taking your legs out from under you. It feels like anyway. It's easy on paper where it's like, hey, be curious. Don't be judgmental or don't be closed-minded. But it's more difficult when it's like, well, I've grown up thinking Pluto was a planet my whole childhood. And then they change it on me. I
mean, is it a planet today? Like they change it like...
Did they change it back? Yeah. I can't even keep up.
I think it's like a dwarf planet.
Yeah, totally.
And I was like, it's like, okay. So, yeah.
But that's my point is like, that's silly.
Right.
But it's like some things can change that quick and you're like, wait, what? And then, do you have a growth mindset? Maybe I'm oversimplifying it.
No, but the ability to maybe like adapt. It feels like adaptability.
Yes. Yep. Definitely.
It feels like willingness to be influenced. I mean, if I'm going to just land on something, I think that's a big piece of it, is the willingness to be influenced versus this like, I know everything, or there's too great a cost for me to admit that I'm wrong or I'm going in the wrong direction.
Right.
There's, I don't know. It's like, okay, so let's think about fixed mindset, right? Like, because I think curiosity, if I was from the 1800s, I'd be like, curiosity, like, curiosity killed the cat. I'm good. I don't know. Cause I was picturing like
that's true.
Some kind of like, I don't know, like some cartoon character that was, with like fixed mindset, who's like, get off my lawn, that kind of like kind of person that's just, we talk about NIMBYism, like this idea that I don't want things to change, the good old days.
Right.
And to be fair, like tradition and conservatism and those kinds of things have their place and they're very important in families, organizations and nations and things like that, cultures. But it's like this idea of maybe holding those things in tension. I think there's certain things that we do need to hold, but we also have to have that growth mindset of like, hey, I might not know everything. Yeah. So what, like in your experience, maybe from your own life or from what you've seen, what keeps somebody like in the fixed mindset? I mean, you said like, oh, I've always heard this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what keeps someone locked in to, I'm not willing to grow. I'm not willing to change.
The first thing I think of is whatever is working for them. Like it works for them.
Dang.
Dallas Willard said the system is perfectly designed to give you the results you're getting.
That's Dallas Willard?
I believe so.
What?
Might be other people too, but
that sounds like a Gary V.
Yeah,
Or I don't know. True. Yeah.
Very wise,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, some people really benefit for things staying the same way, and maybe even shutting their ears to new perspectives or, scientific advancement or whatever it is. Like it works for them to believe and behave this way.
Right. And there must be a certain amount of evidence, right? Like,
sure.
I think back to that story, and I mean, I think it was a true story, but it's the story of Galileo, where he's talking about mass and gravity, and they dropped these things from a tower, and the scientists of the day, he was like proving about like mass, volume, and gravity, something like this. I remember being a kid and hearing this story, and the scientists are up at the top of the tower, and they have this like preconceived idea that they've developed about like, mass and gravity, and they see in front of them like that this heavier thing falls faster, and they reject it. Like there's something like they reject what they see in front of them.
Right.
And I remember being like, I can't believe that, but it really is interesting that even now, I remember thinking so many times, like if you could get video proof of something, right? If, we think about police cams, and it's like, if we could get video proof of fill in the blank, then people would believe. And it actually doesn't, if someone doesn't want to see, they won't see. And so here are these scientists back in Galileo's day, we have cameras today, and we still see what we want to see through that fixed mindset. And so I think like, I know for me, honestly, one of the things that keeps me stuck in fixed mindset in certain situations is like saving face, want to save face, like of the like, oh, I'm wrong. Like, especially if I came out swinging hard on a principle or a concept or like an ideology, and I have to like kind of pull back or adjust my view.
Very humbling, to have to.
So humbling. Yeah. And I think that honestly, like, I don't want to say that's the main reason, but I do think that that's a big part of it. That we have to, like, admitting we're wrong is like individually very difficult.
Yeah.
I think another thing is, belonging, like tribe mentality.
Oh yeah.
Like if I admit that see something differently around this theological idea or this political idea or this idea, the people that I've associated myself with, especially now because we have these like, checklists, like, are you a conservative? Here's all the things you have to believe. Are you an evangelical? Here's all the things you have to believe. And if you don't believe one of those things, sorry, you're not one of us.
Yeah.
And so there's like this packaged deal. Yep. And so if I realize like, oh, I need to think a little bit differently about hot topics, abortion, gun rights. I need to think a little bit differently about gender ideology. I need to think a little bit differently about how to engage this. Am I going to lose my tribe over this? And right now it feels like that's super high stakes.
It is.
And so there's such a cost to the belonging. Like there's my personal ego, and then there's the tribal nature of thought.
Yeah.
And those feel really high stakes.
I think that's, this is a little bit of tangent. I think that's why you have, it's come to be known as virtue signaling, but it's basically like people that are really outspoken or demonstrative about a cause because they're signaling to their tribe, like, I'm one of you.
Yep.
And
totally.
people across the board do it in different ways. And so, yeah. But anyway, back to what you're talking about, back to fixed versus growth mindset. So what would you say are some examples of a growth mindset? How do you demonstrate that? And can you get better at it?
Yeah, like I think one of the best ways to get good at growth mindset is being good at asking questions. And honestly, like that has been hard for me because even though I have a history as a journalist and writer, as a therapist, as a pastor, theoretically should be great at asking questions. And I think that if you polled people who know me, they'd be like, Sarah's good at asking questions. And I am sometimes. But when I have something to lose, it's like my heart rate
Protective
elevates
mode, yeah.
and everything like tenses up. And I'm like, oh, I don't have as much creativity right now. And so when you're talking about this idea of curiosity, I think when it comes to building bridges and connecting with people or expanding who I am as a person with the growth mindset, we have to maintain that curiosity and an open-handedness
Right. Yeah.
of like, hey, I don't have to know everything about everything. And maybe like I'll be okay if I embrace like a slightly more nuanced view or a slightly more expansive view or tilt my position on something a little bit. You know, yes, my tribe might not get it, but will I be okay?
Right.
And so I think like asking a question, I'm thinking about a situation that happened recently where someone was giving me, you know, like sharing a decision with me. And I like wanted to start off by asking like, you know, how did you come to this conclusion? Or, you know, these things. And then I just said like, what would you like me to know about that decision in the process? What do you want me to know? And just like zoomed way out.
That's good.
So they could start anywhere. And I was like grateful for that question that came to me because it was a more generous and more curious question, even though I was like feeling a little defensive. I was a little bit sad. It was like you started off as a like somewhat hard conversation. Yeah. And I was like, okay, this is good because this allows this person to start wherever they need to. And this is a good person and I'm trusting their goodness and my connection to them. Yeah. And that's not always the case. Right. But I think like asking those questions, someone who's brilliant, and this is going to be my answer for something later, but someone who's so good about some of these like questions and responding to hard things, Jefferson Fisher on Instagram. Oh, yeah. Follow him on Instagram if you're not. But yeah, I have been really impressed with the way that he thinks about things. And I think that he definitely helps with like, you know, sometimes we like are like, I really want to have a growth mindset and I'm willing to ask questions. Yeah. What questions should I ask? And I think another thing that's part of this is being willing to pause. I am, as you know, someone who wants to come out and respond right away. I want to have an answer for things. And so being willing to just be like, okay, hang on. I'm just like, you know, I'm sitting with this and let someone know like, you know, I'm thinking about that. Yeah. I'm thinking of a good question to ask. I'm thinking of how I, you know, like where to start. Yeah. I'm giving them like, not just pausing awkwardly and letting silence, because then they'll just jump in, but letting them know like, I need a minute. That's okay. Yeah, and it gives us a second to like ask a better question than like a question that tends to be kind of accusatory, like, why are you doing that? Yeah. Or why did you decide that? Or why, you know, why do you think that? It's like, you know, something that's more, it's wider lens, like, tell me about that. Right. Talk to me about your process. Talk to me about why that matters to you. Yeah, that's good. And that's maybe not a question, but it's eliciting something from them. And just like finding someone's humanity helps you understand them. And what's interesting about this idea of growth mindset versus fixed mindset as I'm talking is like, it's very much about relationship. It's about, it's about connection. Right. Because if I'm willing to be influenced by you and you're willing to be influenced by me, we can be together. Yeah, true. But if we don't want to influence each other, if I'm always like who I am and I can't be changed by you and your experience of me, then we're just here living parallel lives. And there's a good chance our relationship wouldn't make it. Yeah. Don't you think like that just seems like to be the downfall of so many friendships, relationships, marriages, where people just get stuck in a point of like, you can't influence me. Yeah. You know, I can't influence you. And it just takes a nudge sometimes to just like split it apart, you know? Yep. There's such a helplessness. Like I felt that around certain things. Like I try to be someone that can be influenced. And I know there's places where I have a blind spot or people feel maybe helpless to influence me. but I do try to maintain that. And I also know what it's like on the outside looking in at someone who won't be influenced around an issue. And like, I just feel this like sad desperation.
Yeah, right.
Like,
let me get over the wall. I feel this disconnect. What can I do to get over?
Yeah. And it's like, it just makes me so sad. And it's like, what do we do with this here? Yeah. Like, what do we do with the fact that we're just going to be in parallel and we're not going to interact? And so the growth mindset isn't really, yes, it's for you. I think we think of it as like a self-help. If we were going to like go, hey, what's, growth mindset, that book is probably in the self-help. But it's like, it's not really for you. I mean, it is, but it's about you and your relationships.
Right.
Your
absolutely
emotional intelligence and how you interact with people in whatever.
I think in that book, I mean, it's been many years since I've read it, but really good. It shows studies of like how successful people are who have a growth mindset. Like people that are open to being contradicted or proven wrong or, shown another way to do things. Like they're more successful. They get along with people better. They have a more fulfilling career, marriage, family life. I mean, it's not a silver bullet by any means, but just being open to opposing views, which just feels like our whole political partisan, system is against, works against having that. But people that can do that, work across lines, reach across lines, are just more fulfilled, happier people. And so it's not just for you. It's about the quality of your relationships as well. Mm-hmm. And it's about getting stuff done. If that's what matters at the end of the day in a career is getting stuff done, accomplishing goals, having friends who do it alongside you, then this is the means to which you can do that. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think like, maybe a lot of people would say, I want to have a growth mindset, or I already do. But I bet you, like, I feel like I've been exposed to and had to confront like my blind spots over the last, I don't know, few years specifically. Like, I can be influenced. I'm, people can tell me what they think about me and I'll, hear them out or whatever, or I'm approachable. But there's just definitely been spots where it's like, people are trying to say something to me and I haven't been able to hear it for whatever reason. And so I think like, I know you and I both have like really strong personalities. So even though we're like, growth mindset, growth, we also have these like areas where it's like, nope, prove me wrong. Nope, I'm right.
I'm going to, like, or just like dense, like opaque, or what's the, like, not opaque, but I'm not hearing you.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, I'd be curious because we both have been on that journey. Yeah. What's like for you the thing that happens where you shift from fixed to growth around? Because you've had that, and so have I. It's like, ooh.
I think for me, there's a concept I learned earlier this year called enemy mode. Jim Wilder is a neurotheologian, has done some work around this, and so I would say two things. I would say recognizing enemy mode in yourself. When, like, there's almost this switch that gets flipped. Like this person, this is no longer a disagreement. This is an enemy that needs defeated. And I can get very argumentative, stubborn, stuck. And like, just what I tell myself is I'm right. I'm right. And I will bat down any argument that I perceive as weak, wrong, whatever. I'm just right. This person's an enemy. I must defeat them. And it's like these are friends. This is my wife. This is my children. These are, this person. It's a switch internally. So learning to keep that switch deactivated, like learning when it's on, what you're kind of like what you were describing earlier about like your internal heat rising.
Yeah.
Like learning. Yeah. Okay, I need to dissipate that. I need to ground myself in the now. I need to tell myself like I'm good and I'm safe and this person's not, like I have to kind of do some self-talk internally to bring some self-calm, because that it's a different part of your brain that engages, right? It's survival mode, right? Versus prefrontal cortex that's capable of, rational thought and analyzing emotion and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's keeping that part of the brain engaged to have peaceable conversations so that I don't see them as an enemy, So, and along with that is like, it's just a simple kind of check-in, self-check-in. Because I said there were kind of two parts to this. The second part is like, it's another tool, but it's just a self-check-in. Am I connected or disconnected from this person? It's a binary. It's an either or. And what I do is what I'm doing, is what I'm saying, bringing connection or disconnection. And there's intent right behind that.
Yeah.
Like, am I doing and saying things meaning to invite connection? And if the answer is no, it's disconnection. It really is either or. And so that's a heart check on my end to go, do I need to change an approach? Do I need to soften my words? Do I need to like say, hey, agree to disagree? Do I need to go, hey, maybe you're right, and lower the heat? That sort of thing. And so like you said, I have done a lot of work and continue to do the work, because I think that's part of the growth mindset is like, I'm not finished.
Right.
And so that is, if I can just kind of keep going with this line of thought, that is one of the saddest things in life is seeing, people from a faith perspective end up in their latter years of career, ministry, and life who just look like they've stopped growing.
Yeah.
And it's really, it's like if nothing's perfect till Jesus redeems it all, that means I'm still a work in progress at 10, 50, or 100,
True.
And so there's also, what also motivates me to have a growth mindset is I have so many examples of people who don't and are just really stuck or dug in and are not progressing in like spiritual formation or emotional health and intelligence. And they're just done, but they kind of have a semblance of niceness, or I don't know, their system works for them. So they don't have to keep growing. But you see it kind of leak out every once in a while.
Yeah.
But they won't take feedback. They won't take ownership, and they won't keep growing. And so I just think like Christian leadership is littered with examples of like, that's why these men are falling, I think, all over. They're losing their ministries because they're just seeped in hidden sin. They got to a place of thinking probably they deserved this, or no one will find out, or I don't have to because these things are working
kind of
for me.
Invincibility.
Yeah, totally. And so anyway, I just think those are more examples of like, they're fixed. They're stuck. That's it.
I feel like seeing other people be fixed is the motivation for you.
It is.
To get out of it.
And it's not the highest form of motivation, but it's like, oh, I don't want to be like that at that age. Yeah. I mean, that's a big motivation. And I'm not talking binaries like these people are all bad. It's just like, wait, no, I can't. I need to be humble. I need to be humbled. And I need to keep saying yes to the grace of God to allow him to do the work in me and not think, I don't want to hit coast, in other words, because I think coasting leads to fixed mindsets. This is enough, whatever that is.
Yeah. I think like blind spots are so weird because it inherently within a blind spot, it's a place you can't see in your life.
Right.
And so you're like, it's like, when you're driving, you have a blind spot. So hey, there's a motorcycle in it. Like, no, there's not. I don't see it.
That would be the most foolish thing to say, right? It's like, hey, that they're in your blind spot. No, they're not. Well, you can't see it. That's why
I'm telling you. But like, I think you have to believe you have a blind spot.
Yeah.
But I think that was something I learned early on. I remember someone in my department out at on Fort Riley when I was working in mental health there. One of the leaders was talking to me about something and he was like, hey, that's just part of your blind spots. Good to know. And I was like, oh. And he
Such
was
low heat, right? Yeah.
About it.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, that's like a,
hey, we all got them.
Yeah. And it was like, yeah, knowing that as a therapist, as a provider, that, you have a blind spot means that you can be aware of it, right? Like your blind spot gets a little bit more attention.
Yeah.
Like I can see everything in front of me, I can see behind me, and I can see a little bit in my mirrors, but I actually have to like make a very distinct look into my blind spots to see what's there. And if I don't, then something really bad could happen.
Unless you have a Tesla. They got you.
I know. Well, yeah. You're right. Like, I don't know. I don't.
Sorry, I frisked your brain.
You frisked my brain. Like, I don't love everything being electric.
Yeah, I know.
Liabilities.
Okay,
but anyway,
bring it back. Wait.
It's like, no, I can't do it. I'm being concrete right now. Yeah. But this idea that you have to check that deserves special attention, even in a Tesla, there's a camera for it, right? Like this idea that it needs its own eyes. Yeah. And I think that when you have a blind spot, yes, you can observe yourself, but like the people in your life who are, to use the analogy, like in the car with you, like in your life, your family, your friends, the people that are close to you, they see what's in your blind spot. And you have to check. You have to know, yes, I have one. Like I have a blind spot. I have more than one. And when you have the same things happening to you over and over, it's probably something coming through your blind spot. Yeah. I put out a reel about this, about like, I have good intuition and I have blind spots, which means that even when my intuition is good, I like the same patterns and kinds of people would come in through the blind spot. And so finally I'm like, oh, this is why, I understand what makes it what it is and how this happens. But I think that's a piece of it, is just knowing, like, I'm willing to hear from you because I assume that I don't see everything. Yeah. As opposed to I assume I do see everything. Yeah. Like everything I see is reality. Like just the very like core level assumption that I don't see it all is like essential for a growth mindset, I think. Like, because if you don't have that, then you can't. It's good. You're not gonna have someone look into your life. I think another thing that's major, like when I think about our dynamic and when I've been able to hear you versus when I haven't, if you're giving me input about something that I'm doing that's affecting you or affecting other people, and like I do care, but in the moment, if I feel defensive, like if you're like upset with me or someone is upset with me and they're like, this is how you're influencing me, I do not grovel. I don't grovel because I used to. I used to be like, oh, I'm so sorry, and like would just go low. And then there wasn't really resolve. It was just me being like, sorry. Yeah. It's not real. Right. And so then I was like, nope, I'm not doing that. And I kind of switched into this, like, don't talk to me like that kind of mode. And then now that's not helpful in a different way. And I think like, then I reflect later, like I hear what the person's saying, but in the moment it's like shield up. I have to defend myself, even if, it's true and good and I need to hear it. And I'm going to actually implement what they're saying later. Yeah. In the moment, I have trouble hearing. And so I like, because it's like I care about how I'm being affected by what they're saying as opposed to how I affect them. When someone comes to me with like a guard down a little bit, then I hear what they're saying and how I'm affecting them. Mm-hmm. And then it's like this remorse, like, oh my gosh, and I'll think about it. And either way, I'll think about it. Yeah. But I notice that I tend to be more like defensive in the moment when I'm being told something in an aggressive way. And I think that's just like most people's human nature, that you're either going to go into that like low, position of, subjugation or whatever the term is, like the beta position, and be like, oh, I'm sorry, and try to make the conflict go away. Yeah. Or you're going to fight. Like, nope, don't talk to me like that. Mm-hmm. And so it was an evolution for me, a positive evolution for me to fight, because I wasn't doing it before. But I still want to be someone that listens and hears. Right. And so like, you've seen me do this. Like I defend myself and then later on I go, I've been thinking about what you're saying. Yeah. Here's what I want to do differently, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. But it's like, I would like to be better at that, even if someone is like, I need to watch Jefferson Fisher videos again, because even the idea of like responding to someone who's being combative in the moment, I'm not always going to have the time to, I need to be able to respond well in the moment.
Yeah.
You know, even if the person is not, maybe doesn't have my best interest in mind, maybe they don't really care about me. How can I not grovel, but not like be combative? So anyway, that's a growth mindset about my growth mindset.
Well, there you go. I love it.
Full circle. Yep.
Yeah. Good. Good stuff.
Yes.
Thanks. Yeah.
So rapid fire questions.
Okay.
What are you reading right now?
What am I reading? I'm reading Coach Builder by Donald Miller. I'm spinning up my coaching business in a new dimension. And so just kind of wanted to get some insight into the whole kind of program and system. So it's been really good. Whoops, that's my phone. Yeah. How about you? What are you reading?
Yeah, so my New Yorker subscription
there you go.
Just came back online, and so that's been fun.
Yes.
And I'm reading this article. I can't read it right before bed, but it's this Italian Catholic priest that helps people leave the mafia.
Oh,
Italian mafia.
That's
and
awesome.
He literally doesn't even sleep in the same place every night.
Okay, that's not so.
This is. So it's very intense. Like, but he's been doing this. He started this organization 50 years ago.
Okay.
And he's like,
sounds like some kind of movie or something.
Dude. Yeah. I was like, how did they get a photograph of this guy? Because
no kidding.
People know him. Anyway, it's an incredible story. Yeah. And sometimes you just get those like biography.
Yeah.
And I find them so rich and so
interesting.
I know I was reading about Al Pacino in a different episode.
Well, you only get one thing. You can't have multiple things.
Well, I'm not reading. I know. That's the one. But I'm just saying, like, what is this monster thing that I tend to gravitate? I don't know what that's about.
So what's one thing that's saving your butt right now?
Well, I said the Jefferson. That was my answer.
Oh, that was your answer. Okay,
videos, But I was saying
so good. Yeah,
it's so good. Yeah. I think what's so helpful is the scripting. Like, I work with scripting with my clients. Like, how do you want to respond? Let's role play it. Let's get that new neural pathway in your head. The fact that he tells you, instead of doing this, like, here's what you should do. Here's what you should say. It really does give you the ability to like respond in a very firm, powerful, gracious way. Love it.
Yeah.
So binge Jefferson Fisher. Yeah. Get wise. What about you?
So I just redid our family room downstairs.
Yeah.
Paint, some furniture. It feels so great.
It's so cool.
So peaceful.
It looks so nice.
And chill. And so I have a group of guys that come over. We watch football and talk about being men and life and being dads. And it's awesome. And that, I think, not just the basement, but that whole thing that's going on saved my butt right now.
That's so cool. Yeah. I love that. You created that for yourself.
I did.
And for the family. Yeah. So I love that.
Yeah, it's good.
That's great.
Yeah. So.
Well, thanks for joining us on this topic. It is multifaceted and probably deserves a part 2, part 3. So let us know what you think about it in comments, or share an email with us. We would love to hear your thoughts on growth versus fixed mindset, anything we shared today. And we'll see you next time on In the Middle.
Yeah. See you then. This is the In the Middle podcast with Josh and Sarah Siders. Visit inthemiddlecoaching.co for other resources, courses, and helpful tools.